Good evening. I'd like to call this November 6th or November 8th meeting of the Willits City Council to order. We'll start with a pledge to the flag. Chuck, will you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Dolores, may we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Strong?
Here.
Rodriguez? Here. Stransky?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Here.
Mayor Khan?
Yes. We'll start out with public communications. The City Council welcomes participation in its meetings. Comment shall be limited to 3 minutes per person so that everyone has an opportunity to address the Council. To expedite matters and avoid repetition, whenever any group of persons wishes to address the Council on the same subject matter, I may request the group appoint a spokesperson. This item is limited to matters under the jurisdiction of the City Council, which are not on the posted agenda. Public criticism of the City Council, its commissions, boards, and agencies will not be prohibited. The City Council can take no action on non-agendized items. Is there anyone here tonight who would like to speak to a non-agendized item? I saw that hand in the back, and then you. Virginia, if you would come to the podium, please, and state your name for the record.
Can I make a quick announcement
Yes.
first? I wanted to let everybody know that we now have new microphones. Staff and council, please remember to turn them on and off when you are speaking and off when you're not. And also, we launched our new website yesterday. It's much easier and user-friendly on your computer and your handheld device. So if you find that you're having difficulties with anything on the website, please let us know because we are still working out the bugs, and please be patient with us.
And just to let everyone know, my mic is on all the time, so I won't be switching on and off, but it is catching it for the camera, so. All right, Virginia, you're up.
Good evening. I'm Virginia Stransky, and I see on the agenda that you will be speaking of the beautification and some improvements to streets and sidewalks, and this will be after the East Commercial Street is finished. And I would like to ask, please, that they pay close attention to the element of safety. And then also on Maple Street, I walk up Maple with my granddaughter, and we have so many trailers, boats, and people living in a trailer that it puts us into a one-way street. And so I can't walk up the sidewalk because it's always blocked. So we walk on the outside, so I'm always walking in the traffic lane. And I would like to see maybe some of that addressed, maybe a speed limit and some speed bumps. But anyway, safety is a real concern, and I'm on Pine Street, and between Pine and Redwood and Maple, Laurel, we have a lot of children going to and from school, and the school buses are there also. And thank you.
Thank you.
I was told to bring my packages to discuss them.
And don't forget to state your name for
Can I
the...
start?
Yes, go ahead.
I saw Mr. Herchak in an event this past Saturday, and I was sharing with him some concerns I have or difficulties, and he strongly recommended that I come and speak to the council. By the way, good evening. Sorry. If I knew that's what I had to do, I would have been here 4 months, 6 months ago. In general, in your packets, you can review them later. I'm speaking on behalf of residents living on Catherine Lane. That lane is between two main streets. It's like a 12 inches lane. We have many houses on there. We have 5 homes. They flood every year. And on page 1, you have a summary of what I'm going to speak about. And I had these residents, they sign off on what we would like, hopefully, the city to do for us. These homes every winter, I'm new to town, so I'm experienced things. So basically, they flood every year. The second page, you have a map in your package. It shows exactly, on the left side in summary, you have homes sitting on a hill. And on the right side, you have homes in the wintertime, the water. And I have videos and I have pictures. They soak down. There is no storm drainage anywhere on that street. So the water gushes down to the right. Our homes are flooded because there is no place for the water to go down to Pine Street. And then last year I had a problem in my backyard, but all of us suffering the same issue. And actually, I had generously, Mr. Herman came out with our previous engineering and assessed the situation, because all of us were pumping the water to the street, to the school street. And obviously somebody called on us. So the engineer came, he said, I cannot stop it because their homes are flooded. Where is the water going to go? He actually strongly recommended that, we need to have the storm drainage, at least 2 of them on that street, to stop the flow of water coming inside our homes. If you look at the map, like I said, there is one newish home on the left side, and nobody, when they built that home, nobody asked them to put a drainage storm. So, like I said, if you see the pages, I gave you a picture of already.
It's your 3 minutes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. So the point is, I'm trying to find a solution for our street, and I've been doing a lot of things to stop my home from flooding because it's already ruined the foundation one time, and I had to fix it. So everywhere I go, and there is a letter from this new city engineer at the end. We need help. We need help so our homes don't get flooded.
Thank you
And
for bringing
everywhere I
this to
go,
our attention. We will certainly look at your packet. And
Okay. All right.
Thank you. And real quick, before you leave, if you could give your name to make sure it's for the record.
Okay, Ragda Ceccarelli, 226 School Street.
Thank you, Ragda.
Sorry about that.
Is there anyone else tonight who would like to speak? Yes.
Hello. My name is Nikki Caldwell, and I have a question about street lights. My area, we have a problem next door with drugs, drug dealing, and nightly activity. So I was wondering if there's any way we could have a street light on the upper part of Magnolia and Hazel Street. It's pretty much right there where the school buses normally used to park from Bechtel Grove, but maybe it was a little bit more light, we could discourage a little more of their actions, which would be amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here tonight who would like to speak to a non-agendized item? Yes. And don't forget, everyone will have a chance to speak during the public comment portion of each agendized item as well.
Good evening. I wanted to speak to you during public communications, and I know that each month that we sometimes talk about, a topic of the month, but sometimes life happens and you don't need to wait for a month to recognize something. And what I want to talk about this evening is mental health. And I want to talk about how it's okay to say that you're not okay. And I know that this evening there are many people in the community of Willits that are carrying a heavy heart as we lost one of our local youths in their early 20s to mental health. And it's really, really important that we normalize that there's a struggle, and that 21% of adults experience a mental health condition, and half of them never seek treatment. If you're experiencing a mental health crisis in the state of California, you can call 988, and there are 12 Lifeline crisis centers that specifically you can call them, and that's their purpose, to talk to you when you're going through that struggle. I think too often people think that strong people don't struggle, that leaders don't struggle, that you have to struggle quietly, that you can't share how you feel, or there's a perception that you aren't strong or you're not smart. And I just want to reemphasize and help break down some of those barriers that we all struggle. We all struggle, and that the highest group of people that are affected by mental health crisis are age 18 to 25. So it's even more important, those young people that are getting out and they're just getting started in the world, that we reach out to them, that we make sure that they have support, that we check on each other, that we normalize the struggle and make it clear that it's okay to say, I'm not okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sabrina. Is there anyone else tonight who would like to speak to a non-agendized item? Yes.
I just spoke, I can't ask. Sorry about that.
Okay. It has to be at the microphone so the camera can pick you up.
I was told, speaking to the clerk, that I can ask if this issue I brought up can be on the agenda for the following, in 2 weeks, because it's impacting the community.
Would,
Can I make a suggestion?
yes.
There's this topic and others like them that relate to transportation. We have a transportation meeting, is it the 30th of this month?
Yes.
The 30th of this month at 9 a.m.
Okay.
I would suggest that we could take it up as a topic at the transportation committee meeting, or you could come and during public comments also talk about it. That seems like more an appropriate way to get started on the issue.
The
I was-
Transportation Committee looks at roads as well
Oh,
and
I didn't know
drainage,
that.
so
I
that
will-
would be a perfect
okay.
spot for that.
When is the meeting, ma'am? Sorry.
The 30th? Is that a Thursday?
9 a.m.
Thursday at 9 a.m.
And just so you know, that committee then does make recommendations to the council at large, so that's a perfect place for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. Anyone else tonight for a non-agendized item? Okay. Dolores, did we receive any emails from members of the public?
We did not.
Okay. All right. So we will move on then to public matters. Our first item is a proclamation recognizing Edith Ceccarelli, the oldest living person in California. So I'd like to read this proclamation, and I think Evelyn, you will accept this after.
I was hoping that Lee and Chuck would accept it, because
Okay.
they are her husband.
Okay.
But, you know, there's one little thing in the proclamation that I was looking at here.
Okay.
It's Edith Ricano Keenan. Her maiden name is Ricano.
Oh, they switched it, didn't they?
So it's, we switched it.
Okay,
Yeah, so
okay.
it should be Edith. If you want to put your initial R, it's fine. If not, but it should be Ricano
Okay.
Keenan.
Okay.
Ceccarelli.
So I'll read this, and
Okay,
then
that's
perhaps
fine,
we
but,
can update the actual proclamation so that when you have the paper copy, it'll be correct.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we would like to issue this proclamation of the Willits City Council recognizing Edith Ricano Keenan Ceccarelli, oldest living person in California history. Whereas it is the privilege of the Willits City Council to acknowledge and honor Edith as setting the record of being the oldest confirmed Californian, she is also recognized as being the oldest living person in the United States of America and third oldest in the world. How lucky we are, the city of Willits, to have someone with such a history as a resident of our wonderful little city. I therefore recognize, as mayor of the city of Willits, along with our vice mayor, Jerry Gonzalez, council members Sabrina Rodriguez, Madge Strong, and Larry Stransky, we extend our collective heartfelt congratulations to Edie and issue this proclamation.
Lee and Chuck here.
So we'll just offer this to you, but as I said, we'll get this corrected.
Thank you very much, and thank you, City Council, for recognizing her. We appreciate that.
And we look forward to her birthday in February.
February.
Good weather.
Thank you very much.
So was she born in 1908 or 1907?
08.
ways, okay. I was doing the math, I was just now, just trying to figure out, wow.
Yeah, wow.
Well, she is well out there, you know,
Yeah.
on all these different, like, yeah,
We just had Guinness's
I think
World
she's gonna be a
record.
Wow.
Guinness World Record.
They were here
Wow.
2 weeks ago.
It's wonderful. All right. Our next proclamation recognizes November 23rd as Native American Heritage Month. So I'll read this one, and I believe we have Tina Sutherland here tonight to recognize. Okay. The Willits City Council issues this proclamation recognizing November 23rd as Native American Heritage Month. Whereas during National Native American Heritage Month, we celebrate the rich tapestry of Indigenous peoples and honor their sacrifices, which we recognize as inextricably woven into the history of this country and region. And whereas Native Americans are descendants of the original indigenous inhabitants of what is now the United States, and whereas Native Americans have moving stories of tragedy, triumph, and perseverance that need to be shared with future generations. And whereas Native Americans have enriched our heritage and continue to add to all aspects of our society through their generosity of culture and the continued practice of teaching economic, environmental, and cultural sustainability. And whereas during the month of November, we honor our Native peoples in their ancestral homes, and recognize their continued contributions to strengthening the diversity of our society. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Greta Connie, Mayor of the City of Willits, along with Vice Mayor Jerry Gonzalez, Council Members Sabrina Rodriguez, Madge Strong, and Larry Stransky, do hereby proclaim the month of November 2023 as Native American Heritage Month.
And also, if you guys want to say anything.
Yes. I just wanted to say thank you, and on behalf of the Sherwood Valley Band of Pueblo Indians, I want to introduce our secretary of our tribal council, treasurer, she was our secretary for forever, Karen Shepard, and our lifelong tribal members on the Whipple.
Quite an honor to hear this read out loud. Made me feel really good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here, and thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's worth noting, I'm also a member of the Museum Advisory Board, and I'm not sure if you're aware, but the museum is working on a land acknowledgement to include in all of their paperwork and outgoing communications to recognize the tribal lands here in Little Lake Valley. So I'm very proud of that happening here. All right. We will now recognize the introduction by title only of ordinance adding Chapter 17.59, the Model Water Efficient Landscape, to the zoning of City of Willits Municipal Code. And our presenting member is Code Compliance Officer Philip Davidson.
I don't. Well, yeah, that'll work. That's the sidewalk. I don't want to be there. There you go.
We finally entered the 21st century with our technology and screens here in City Hall, but it sometimes takes us a minute to get oriented, so bear with us.
I think
Some of
the
us
slide
haven't
deck's about 65 or something like that, so that's why it's taking some time to load. We'll be here for a while.
Honorable Mayor and Council, I don't know how to work this. So this is the Model Water Landscape Model Water Efficiency Landscape Ordinance. Oops. There we go. So California tried to get ahead of the drought And so in 2006, they released the 1881, the Senate Bill, Assembly Bill 1881, which required the Department of Water Resources to update their model water efficiency landscape ordinance. On April of 2015, the governor authorized the State Water Resource Control Board to establish regulations to increase water efficiency and update it again, in which that required all local governments to adopt it as law. And the city of Willits currently enforces the Moello ordinance to the California Green Building Standards. The new development projects that fall into this are new development of 500 square feet and bigger. And there was previously 2,500 square feet was the original, and then they downsized. And some projects, the smaller projects, fall with a prescriptive compliance option, which is somebody qualified can do it, like a contractor can draw up his own plans. Or the bigger projects of 2,500 square feet and bigger have to be done by a architect. And the city of Willits has about 0 to 2 of these projects annually.
Jerry has a question for you.
Oh, yes, sorry.
So when you say 0 to 2, that's of the 2,500 square foot ones as opposed to the 500 square foot ones?
That's all of them in general.
Oh, okay.
So Mendo Mill was one of them, and the McDonald's was one of them,
Okay.
and Brothers Lane, the projects down there.
But a normal residence? would
No, normal
normally-
residents don't fall in, not usually, into the category.
Okay.
The significant revisions are it's more efficient irrigation systems. They want to reuse the gray water, stormwater capture. They want to limit the landscape they planted with high water use, like redwoods and willows and whatnot. Annual reporting requirements are for these, so we do have to go inspect them annually for the irrigation. And just increased requirements for the irrigation design. And the staff recommendations are approve the introduction by title of the ordinance, adding chapter 1759 to title 17 zoning model water efficient landscape to the Willits Municipal Code to comply with the state requirements and to waive a formal reading thereof. And we'd also like to schedule a second reading and adoption of the ordinance at the next scheduled city council meeting on December 13th.
So just to clarify, this is essentially something that the city is already doing. This is just housekeeping to make sure that this ordinance is on the books so that we're in compliance with state.
Yes. And it's supposed to be adopted by all local governments, counties, or cities. So we do it, we just don't have an ordinance yet.
Right, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council?
Can we waive the second reading, or do we always need a second reading for clarification?
No, we can waive it, and the government code requires that there be a full reading of an ordinance at either the first meeting or the second meeting, unless there's been a waiver of it. And Brian and I talked about this recently, and it's our recommendation that we just waive the reading and vote.
Okay. So a motion could be made. This is going to be hard to get used to. There could be a motion made to waive the second reading and to approve the ordinance
Well, at the next meeting, we would.
at the next meeting. Okay, thank you.
I guess that's a question for Jim. Based on what Sabrina said, the reason for doing it again is in case to solicit more public comment on an ordinance that we're going to change. Is that the reason?
All ordinances require 2 meetings. The
Okay.
first is the introduction, and followed by a second meeting where there's the actual adoption.
Thank you.
No other questions from council? Okay, I'm going to open it to the public. Does anyone out there have comments that they'd like to make about this ordinance? All right, hearing none, I'll bring it back up. And I believe we've done our duty to have the first reading, and we'll see this again next month.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Do we have to take action to, yeah, well, it says approved by introduction, and I don't know. If we have to take that action, I would like to so move.
Do we have to have a motion and a second for this?
Yes, so
Okay.
the motion would be to approve staff recommendation.
I would second Madge's motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Dolores, may we have a roll call, please?
I'm going to let Michelle do the roll call.
Michelle.
All right. Councilmember Small?
Yes.
Rodriguez? Yes. Stransky?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mayor Condon?
Yes, thank you. And we'll revisit this next month. All right, moving on to our consent calendar. The City Council considers matters listed under the consent calendar as routine. The item on tonight's consent calendar are the minutes from the October 25th meeting. Any? Oh, I'm sorry, I did skip enactment of ordinances. Tonight, we'll be looking at the second reading and adoption of an ordinance adding Chapter 8.10, the mandatory organic waste disposal reduction, to the Willits Municipal Code. We will hear tonight from our city planner, Taylor Perry. Sorry about that.
Good evening, council members, Madam Mayor. My name is Taylor Perry. I'm the city planner for the Community Development Department. And for your consideration tonight is the second reading of the ordinance titled the Mandatory Organic Waste Disposal Reduction Ordinance, which aligns with the requirements of SB 1383, which is the Short-Lived Climate Pollutant Reduction Act of 2016. There it is. This mandates that all jurisdictions must adopt and enforce measures to reduce organic waste disposals to landfills. As a result of this obligation, the City Council took the initiative to place this ordinance on the first reading by introduction and title only of the last regular council meeting we had on October 25th. And a second and final reading today, as Jim just kindly explained, is required for its adoption. Since the first reading, the ordinance was published. The ordinance summary was published in Willits Weekly last week and Thursday's edition of Willits Weekly, and no public comments were received. Failure to not adopt this ordinance in a timely manner could subject our city to penalties imposed upon by CalRecycle, so it's a very important ordinance that should be enforced. Furthermore, the adoption of this ordinance will necessitate additional staff time, minimal staff time, to ensure compliance per SB 1383 requirements such as procurement, public outreach, reporting, and enforcement of an edible food recovery program. I would also like to emphasize that adoption of this ordinance allows the city to apply for CalRecycle programs, grant assistance programs. And there is a grant that is coming up. The deadline would be next Wednesday, November 15th. The grant program is aimed at aiding local jurisdictions in implementing the regulations associated with SB 1383. So it's rather kind of CalRecycle to offer assistance programming, considering they are the ones imposing the mandates. The program allows cities to apply for capacity or assistance for capacity planning, collection, edible food recovery, education outreach, all the things that are required by SB 1383, as I previously stated. So one critical eligibility of that requirement is to have this ordinance in place. I urge the City Council to take this opportunity and make a positive and lasting impact on our community by abiding by state legislator and getting us up to speed with these requirements. And I suppose that is it. Any questions?
Madge?
Madge?
I think at the last meeting you explained that there's only a few fairly large,
Tier 2 generators. I
Yeah,
believe.
generators
Yeah.
of edible waste that could be recovered for actual food. And that part of this program would be to reach out to them. So I know that Jerry Ward is going to do his job as solid waste of Willits, but are you, as the staff person, going to also be speaking to the places that have, yes, you are.
Yes, that is the intent. We would be, Jerry Ward and Solid Waste of Willits currently is doing a lot of the heavy lifting of monitoring and reporting and performing inspections. Our intent, if we do acquire funding through the SB 1383 Local Assistance Program funding, is to mainly perform public outreach and provide those education materials. So meeting people on site, being a middleman to answer any questions, that would be the role that we would intend to take.
Great, thank you.
I just wanted to clarify, the reason for this is to minimize food waste that goes into the garbage. Food waste is a major methane gas producer, which is part of the climate issues that California is facing. And so that's why the law was passed. The City of Willits is already offering green waste collection and allows residents to separate their food waste. However, this is just a further step to make sure that we're in compliance with state law and also making sure that our largest producers are in compliance as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, any comments from the public? I will open this up for any comments from the public regarding this ordinance. Nothing? Okay, I'll bring it back up and entertain a motion.
I would so move that we waive the second reading and adopt ordinance titled An Ordinance of the City Council, Willits, California, adding Chapter 8.10 of Title 8, Health and Safety Mandatory Organic Waste Disposal Reduction. And so that's my motion.
I second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call, please?
Yes.
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 Yes, thank you. We have a new ordinance.
Just wanted to add that, in addition to the methane reduction, which is really important, but it is also possible to have the food that is now thrown away provided to people through the food bank and other food programs. So it has a win-win.
Yes, and several of our largest restaurants and grocery stores are already doing that in our community and finding ways to reuse that food so that it doesn't get thrown out and make sure that it goes to worthy charities. So thank you for pointing that out, Madge. All right, so that was the enactment of ordinances. We will now move on to the consent calendar. Item on this evening's consent calendar are the City Council minutes from October 25th. Does anyone have any comments or corrections about those minutes? I'm looking to you, Madge. You're our eagle eyes.
I already provided a couple of very small corrections to Dolores.
All right, thank you. All right. I will open this up to the public. Does anyone from the public have any comments regarding the minutes from the October 25th meeting of the City Council? Okay, I'll bring it back up.
I'll move approval of the consent calendar. You have to be fast.
I'll second.
He had his hand on the microphone.
All right, we have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Strong?
Yes.
Rodriguez? Yes. Stransky?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mayor Connell?
Yes, thank you. That takes us to number 6, the monthly activity reports. We do have a building permit activity report for the month of October included in our packet. These are matters that do not require action by the City Council but are of public interest. If you'd like to know the building permit activity, you're encouraged to go to the city's website where you'll find that report. Moving on to item 7, the Willits City Council meets concurrently as the City Planning Commission and successor agency. However, we have no items tonight, so we'll move on to item 8 and hear our city manager's reports and recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There we go, we're live. Tonight, I don't have any action item per se for your attention, but there's a couple recommendations, updates that we want to present. You can see our audience is halfway filled by these keen young individuals who are busting at the seams to provide an update on their planned holiday festivities for Snider Park. So I'm teeing it off for them, and I'm handing it over to our well-behaved FFA members.
Caleb, the camera right there, I kind of want to catch the speaker, so maybe if you guys could go in a way just so that the camera can get the angle of your speaker. There you go, that might work.
Thank you guys for your time. I'm Wyatt Clee from Willits FFA. I'm glad to be here.
I'm Caden Paulus.
My name's Caleb Whitehurst.
I'm Rex Davidson.
I'm Katie Spackman.
I'm Diana Estrada.
And I'm Bobby Nunez. So we are planning an event that is going to be called Light Up the Park with Willits FFA. We will be going to businesses and asking them to sponsor, if they would like to sponsor a Christmas tree for $125, and then we will set up the Christmas trees on December 4th in the city park.
And then businesses will have from December 4th through the 9th to set up their Christmas tree however they would like to decorate it. And then on December 9th at 7 p.m., we will light up all the Christmas trees. There we will have live music and vendors, as well as other fun activities for the community. We want to have them up for the whole month of December, and then on January 1st, we plan to take them all down.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I have a few questions. So I assume that you're going to solicit to the businesses, but let's say a business didn't see one of your faces and they wanted to sponsor a tree. How do they reach out?
We will have my email as well as Ms. Brackett's email and phone number on there, so that would be a way to reach out to us.
We're also going to post it on our Facebook accounts and Instagram.
Okay, wonderful. And then in terms of the placement of the trees in the park, will you have them like in a concentrated area? Are they going to be around the perimeter, spread out through the park? Will there be fencing around? Just kind of generally, what do you envision? Who's the visionary?
Yeah, somebody can come up and answer that if one of you has the answer.
So we originally envisioned lining the walkways.
You have to be at a...
If you could grab one of the other ones.
So kind of the tentative plan is to line the walkways with lit up Christmas trees, and then maybe set the vendors up around the inner chipped area with the mulching on it. So you don't have to walk through grass or mud.
So would the vendors be there on the December 9th when you light up? And do you have a time set up for when you're gonna like power them all up?
It'll be at 7 p.m.
At 7 p.m. that evening. I know that's also the same weekend that there will be an event happening here at the Art Center, and there's other events going on, so all kind of centralized in the Commercial Street area, so that's wonderful. Thank you.
Hi there. Question along those lines, will this be our tree lighting of the community? Is this going to kind of be our tree lighting? Do you envision this being the city tree lighting event that they've done in the past at other places?
Yes, we're hoping that it becomes an annual thing as well.
Okay, and then hypothetically, Business X wants a tree. Could you tell me what that would involve, or is it just by donation only kind of thing? And
Well, sponsored the tree for $125.
Okay.
And we have the sponsorship forms.
Oh, okay. All right. And is this, Dolores, is this something we could scan and put on our website for them also?
We can share it on our Facebook page and our city website.
Okay, because I think it's one of those things that, I think it's a great thing. Bought plenty of FFA dinners and all this other stuff you guys do, and you guys do a lot of good work, and it's nice seeing kids doing positive things, especially when it comes to agriculture, which to me is the bedrock, at least in this area and most of the United States. And it's been that way since the founding of this country. So I really think it's great, and thank you very much for doing this, and also very community spirited.
Madge and Karen.
Yeah, so also on logistics, I guess. So for the $125 sponsorship, then you are going to supply trees, so they'll all be similar trees, but the business that has sponsored it would decorate it themselves?
Yes.
And providing the lighting as well?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So it's an important commitment of the business community to make this event work well. And so I support that totally.
Our HR director, Karen, has a question.
I just like to know how big are these trees? And if there's private individuals that would like to purchase a tree, can they do so?
So the trees will be from 5.5 to 6 feet, and we haven't, yeah, they can.
I have a question. Will there be any security provided to make sure that the trees are not vandalized?
We were,
There's going to be a herd of angry reindeer.
I mean, you hate to think of that, but it's something that we unfortunately do have to think about.
Yeah, no, we thought about that, but we can't supply security. Hopefully, being local, between the fire department and the police department, and hopefully people just don't do it.
Gotcha.
That's all we know.
Thank you.
If I could make a comment, follow-up, is there, I know that we have installed some security cameras on the west side of the park. Is there any?
Well,
Do we
the fire
have-
district has one, at least one camera that overlooks the bay and scans eastward across the park, so we can have access to that. We have had access to that in the past. We may want to think about a simple game camera set up just temporarily. We could put that up real quick and easy, efficiently, and record. Plus, there's a lot of eyes surrounding the park here, between the fire district, city hall, the PD, the residents. So I'm hoping that the message is out there that don't do anything you shouldn't.
Thank you.
A lot of angry blue reindeer will be.
I would strongly encourage, though, that there is some extra security that's put on over there. I would hate to see
That has been talked about internally.
any kind of
yeah.
damper, yeah, put on this.
A couple years ago, we did have a tree in the park that was by one of the local churches. And to my understanding that there was nothing, no worries, there was nothing that happened during that time when we have that tree. And I believe they are hoping to have a tree at the same time put up in the same location. So it will coincide with these trees being put up at the same time.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any other questions from council for our FFA students here this evening?
No, just thank you. And I love the visionary and the coming up with new ideas that are really going to make the community look good, feel vibrant, and just bring about an energy when you do an activity like this. So thank you.
I want to check too to see if anyone from the public has any comments that they'd like to make. Yes. Yes. I know I hate to be a stickler, but the camera's got to hear you.
Ragda Zakaria. I just want to let you know I'm so delighted to see such a group of people with uniform. It's just I have a little question. I'm new to town. What's FFA? I've been trying to read what's on the back of your shirt, and I
right
couldn't.
there, they'll answer it right there.
What's the FFA?
Am I turning everyone? Okay. So the FFA stands for Future Farmers of America. We are the largest student-run organization in the United States. We mainly focus on leadership, two main things, leadership and agriculture. There's a lot of different pathways you can do in FFA. If you're enrolled in any ag or mechanics class at the high school, you're instantly put in FFA. We go on trips, have leadership conferences, do things around the community, just try and make our community and the world a better place, and teach leadership and other skills.
Can I and just so everybody knows, a lot of your bankers, big agro-business people, a lot of them started out like these young kids here, and I believe there are people in Congress that are also FFA people that started out this way. So the pathway to leadership is just that. Part of their program also involves them coming and doing these sort of things at city council meetings and other civic events, and so I think it's a good way to start these folks off. Maybe one day they'll be sitting up here. So, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I would like to thank all of them for coming, and thank you very much. It's a really good thing to see nice, young, clean-looking kids. I'll tell you that. Thank you very much.
You probably don't look this way when you're taking care of your animals.
No, we always look like this. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Can I just go to that mic?
Yes, you can go to this mic.
I just have a question. If can I get one of those forms for one? And if we did get a tree, when do we get the tree to decorate it? And like how long is that time frame? And what about, are the vendors already a thing? Or is that something that...
Yeah.
Yes.
So the plan would be to get the business or the trees set up in the park by December 4th and give the businesses a 5-day time period from December 4th to December 9th to get their trees fully set up, decorated with things that represent their business. And one thing that we forgot to say earlier is we're planning on putting little QR codes on each tree to scan for each business that would link to a website or something that coincides with their business. And then we're still working on vendors, things like that. We're just working out the things. Okay.
Also, our advisor, Ms. Brackett, will send Dolores an email with an updated version of our sponsor form. Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You all did a wonderful job. All right. What else, Brian?
All right, I just want to comment and echo what has already been expressed. I know for myself and other staff members who are present, sometimes we don't see the most ideal individuals or situations in this community that come to us and we have to resolve. It's very encouraging to see young members of this community speaking up and taking an interest. So I think a round of applause is worthy, so thank you. Building on the holiday goodwill, which many people know that I'm probably not the biggest advocate of holiday seasons, but I do my share. We seem to have a new focus in the organization here where we're reaching out to different groups and organizations in the community, and we have worked with other groups, the Hometown Celebration, Harvest Moon. We recognize there's value in having, what we refer internally as sponsorship or assistance. We're not leading it, we're almost the facilitator. We're bringing people together, bringing groups together, trying to work out the details. And this next item that I'm just going to once again tee it off, Taylor Perry is going to she's one of the lead facilitators that we have, or ruckmongers or something like that, or, stirring the pot. But, it's a new beginning for us, and we're trying to get our message out there, and we want to basically be encouraging these organizations. If any group, or any organization has an opportunity that wants to promote what they're doing or event, please come see us. We want to do that. So Taylor's going to give an update on what is building off what we just heard from the kids here regarding the tree lighting in the park and several other events that are almost happening simultaneously. And unfortunately, what we have experienced in the past is some of these situations or events have occurred in isolation, and it's not ideal. And what we're trying to do is just kind of a little bit of effort and coordination so they roll together seamlessly. So, Taylor?
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, members of the FFA, for that introduction. I'm very excited for the event. I think to kind of build up to the momentum of the Light Up the Park, we have another event that's, I believe Dolores mentioned. It's called Christmas in the Park, and it's being sponsored by the Calvary Chapel. That would be on December 1st. So I guess we'll kick off December 1st, Christmas in the Park. It begins at 6 p.m., goes till 7, and according to their website, all are welcome to worship the Lord, read the Christmas story, light a giant tree, and enjoy home-baked goodies. But lucky for us, this giant tree will remain for the entire duration of December, so it'll certainly be a feature point for the Light Up the Park event. So very excited for that. On December 2nd, we have the Christmas Holiday Express over at Roots of Motive Power, featuring Santa's arrival on a steam locomotive complete with trees, Christmas carolers, refreshments, and this event is free and is catering to all ages, so that'll be a fun event. And also, the skunk train, the whole month of December, has a certain festive celebration they're doing, the Christmas tree train, where you can take a journey through the redwoods to Mr. Skunk's redwood tree, one of the largest decorated trees here in Willits. That's something to be proud of. And I guess the tree is also Mr. Skunk's giant Christmas tree, so I might just go to see what that is. What else? I'm sure there are other things that are also going to be happening in addition. I did my best. But if anybody is aware of other events, please feel free.
The chamber event on the Saturday after Thanksgiving and promoting local small-town businesses?
Yes, that would be one. Brian, do you have more information on
You're
that?
doing fine.
Well, I know that there is it's not the Makers Market, but the Art Center is putting on something around the same weekend as December 9th. There is gosh, I've missed that one, Brian. Thank you. I'm going to get more information on that one and give you the... Oh.
It's November 20th. The small shop local and shop small businesses is Saturday, November 25th.
November 25th.
I guess all day whenever the businesses are open.
Because Brian asked me to report on the December events. So
the December events.
This is fine. But since we're reporting on November events as well, I do have an exciting announcement.
Remember that discussion we had earlier, city manager, senior planner? Yeah,
This is correct. I learned a lot. On November 16th, next Thursday, we have organized a follow-up to the open house we had for the East Commercial Corridor Enhancement Plan. This idea was brought to us by Karen Matson, not as an affiliate of the museum this time, but as a PTO member for the Bechtel Grove Middle School. So in partnership with her, we're having a pizza social to solicit more feedback in regards to the East Commercial Corridor Enhancement Plan. Brian and I thought it was really important to try to get even more feedback because the open house was very helpful in providing guidance to our wonderful consultants, terrain architects. So we thought we'd build upon that and engage students and kids and many of the cohorts that'll be using or enjoying the improvements we've already proposed, such as park improvements, bike enhancements. So it's going to be pretty fun, and there will be pizza, as promised by Brian. So that's November 16th. And then there has been word of a second annual Willits Truckers Parade. We have yet to confirm anything with the event organizer, Jennifer Drew. We're still waiting to confirm the event details, but word has it that will also occur on December 9th. Likely it'll take the same route, the same organization structure as last year, beginning at Evergreen Shopping Center and going to the ball field. So likely passing by the Light Up the Park event. So once I confirm details of that, I'll certainly pass it to you and to the community members who are interested. I think, and one more thing, I'll wrap up. The City of Willits employees have already began planning our City of Willits Christmas party. So all City of Willits employees, the council, Shirley, the fire department, the police department are all invited to the Christmas party, which will likely take place either December 15th or December 16th with a +1. So that was all I have.
Thank you, Taylor. Madge, and then Sabrina.
Yeah, just a couple things I happen to know about. On December 5th, is that this? No, yeah, December 5th, which is a Tuesday evening, the Mendocino College class that's been taking place here in Willits, combined with the choir class from Ukiah, are giving a concert, and that the Tuesday evening one will be here at the high school, and I think Monday evening, December 4th, there will be one in Ukiah.
Christmas music?
It's peace music primarily, but yeah, it includes some a beautiful Silent Night and some, it's really very seasonal and beautiful music, peace-oriented. And then on the Wednesday, December 6th, let me look at my, Wednesday, that's going to be the Willits Song Circle, which we've been doing the first Wednesday of every month, and that one, which will be at 5 o'clock at the Methodist Church, is a sing-along. It's everybody sings, but we'll definitely have some Christmas-oriented music at that one.
Thank you. Sabrina.
All right, and for all those looking to meet up with Santa Claus, don't forget that on December 2nd at the Santa Holiday Express at the museum, there will be Santa Claus that you can get a photo with. And then also on December 10th, the Sunday over at JD Red House, you can get your photo with Santa. And if you want to do something a little different, on December 9th over at Imagination Station Toy Depot, you can come and get your photo like Larry and I did with our Grinch. So.
Was Brian going to be there?
I invited
Someone
him this
keeps
year.
putting me out there.
I did. I invited Brian over. In fact, maybe we need a city council photo with the Grinch. We'll post it on our website, right?
Yeah, that's fine. I can do that. That's great. So,
Is Brian going to be in the Grinch costume?
probably. It's the way I'm going, yeah. So, one other item relating on the holiday theme here is that we've been talking internally just recently, potentially trying to balance out the holiday presence. It looks like, I think it was noted that this side of the community is going to be heavily influenced with lighting and activities. We're looking at, see if we can put a tree up at Babcock Park. Maybe not like one of the existing trees, but secure another tree and have a presence there on Main Street.
Very nice.
So, looking to do that. No promises yet, but we're exploring that option.
Don't worry, my yard will be heavily lit.
Yes, okay.
Anything else? For...
Two small, or not small, but two items I want to bring up regarding staff. So first, it's Michelle Coleman of the Finance Department. I know some staff members is like, is it Michelle? She is learning the skills of operating and running a meeting just to fill in when Dolores is going to be absent. And looks like December we're going to have. So she's learning and she is understanding how the dynamics of meetings work, and she is learning and she is enjoying the opportunity. So just want to make sure that everyone recognized that. And secondly, Davey Bowles back there, who's acting or interim community development director for this week, has received his full certifications for responsibilities related to building inspection, code review, plan review. So I want to acknowledge that.
Awesome.
And I also want to take this opportunity. It was a little difficult getting where we are, and I want to extend a public apology to Davey. It shouldn't have had happen internally like it did. So just want to acknowledge that for the record.
Okay.
Good job, Davey. Yeah, I think sometimes when you work in government, you can be overlooked and not see the value. And I think each of us know that until you need that city service, you don't realize how much their expertise can impact you. And I know with my construction, Davey has been essential in helping to give good guidance and advice, as well as providing those inspections that will help us run a safe building for the community and ourselves. So thank you.
Yes, it's somewhat of internal, but Davey is a valuable member of this organization. He was slighted somewhat, and I wanted to correct that. I had a responsibility in it, and that was wrong. So that's why it was said. That's what I have.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to item 8, which is department recommendations. These are action items. I do want to say to the FFA, you are not required to sit here for the rest of the meeting. So we appreciate your attendance.
Thank you guys again.
And we hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. If you want to leave it that way, that'd be perfect. All right, so our first action item tonight is a resolution authorizing the grant application mentioned earlier for Senate Bill 1383 Local Assistance Grant Program. We will hear from our senior city planner, Taylor Perry, once again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, my name is Taylor Perry, Senior City Planner. Before you tonight is up for consideration for adoption of a resolution authorizing grant applications for the Senate Bill 1383 Local Assistance Grant Program, as I mentioned earlier. This program is administered by the Department of Resources, Recycling and Recovery, also known as CalRecycle. It's a program that's designed to provide essential aid to our city in implementing the regulations of SB 1383. It is fortunate for us, it's a non-competitive grant. So if you meet all the qualifications, you submit appropriately, upload all the attachments, it's more or less of a handout. So that's what non-competitive means in this form. We have not been able to apply for this grant because we have not had an ordinance or a resolution enacting authorization of applying for this grant. So pending approval of this resolution tonight, we would hopefully intend to apply for this year's cycle. The grant, as I stated previously, is due November 15th. And I could reiterate, our staff's primary objective for this funding and the $75,000 allocation would be outreach, public outreach, providing education materials. Enforcement would be a part of that. Procurement, so creating a market to where we're purchasing recycled and organic materials. If we can't use them in our parks, because the procurement target is quite high, and it's unrealistic to assume we could use it. Our intent is actually to provide a giveaway. We would purchase compost, potentially mulch, and then we would have giveaways. The grant cycle goes until 2026, so we would have to allocate procurement and education, staff time along that 3-year cycle. It's also important to note that the language of the resolution did not come straight from me. It came from the CalRecycle model language, just as the ordinance did. So it does stipulate that the resolution include a 5-year minimum as to when it can be enacted. So that has been included in the resolution. And I'll also mention that the procurement target is about 1,500 cubic yards per year, which is, yes, it's quite a high amount. So this, getting this grant funding, $75,000 would be imperative in meeting that target. Are there any questions? Yes?
Is it going to come from the one in Redwood Valley, or, Potter Valley?
Oh, the compost, Cold
Yes.
Creek compost, yes. That is the only organic recycling facility in this area.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Okay, I'll open it up to the public. Any questions about this application? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jerry.
I would like to move the recommended action and recommend City Council adopt the resolution authorizing staff to file the application with the California Department of Resources and Recycling Recovery to allow staff to apply for the grant funding for SB 1383, Local Assistance Grant Program pursuant Chapter 395 Statutes of 2016.
Thank you.
And I'll second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Strong.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Stransky. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mayor Condon.
Yes, thank you. Just in the nick of time, past that ordinance, right? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to prospective sidewalk ordinance amendments. This is an informational discussion to look at how we might change our Willits Municipal Code to deal with the question of sidewalks. We'll hear from our contract planner, Leilani.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Hi, Council.
Leilani.
Leilani,
Yes,
yeah,
I'm
Shai,
sorry.
you got it, contract planner. Yeah, so let me pull up my PowerPoint here if I can. Oh, is this, I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at your screen right here. Here we go. Okay. I'm hoping that's the play button. All right, so the informational discussion. This is intended to be an early stage, just sort of an introduction to talking about potential amendments to Chapter 12.16. That's sidewalks, curbs, and gutters, construction and repair. So specifically talking about sidewalk repair and maintenance. So the prospective ordinance policies and details that we're talking about in this presentation have been selected through staff research between the planning, the building, and the services and facilities department. And so City Council is not required to provide feedback at this time, but it would be appreciated so that we can form formal amendments to bring forward to you at a future date. So diving into the background, so how we came to address this today. City staff has been reviewing the current Willits ordinance language and determined that additional policies or procedures should be added to address sidewalk maintenance and repair. So currently the Willits Chapter 12.16 was established in 1968 and hasn't been updated since 1989. And additionally, the design and construction standards that reflect our standards for sidewalk construction also need to be updated. So currently, this is shown in our handout for the staff report. The Willits Chapter 12.16 currently requires property owners to start repairs on their sidewalk if the cost of construction, if they're working on their house, exceeds $10,000 or more, or the cost of construction is greater than 25% of the value of the structure, or there's an addition of 300 square feet or more to the structure. So out of those three options, whichever definition is less is where the idea that the property owner is required to do sidewalk repairs currently as it stands. Additionally, the Willits Code does not clearly clarify who is responsible, property owner versus city, in certain instances for actually fixing the sidewalks, whereas California Streets and Highway Code Section 5610, that's attachment F, does specify very clearly that property owners that are adjacent to sidewalks are responsible for repairs. So Scott Herman with the Willits Facilities and Service and Facilities Department, he provided the San Jose language that has been kind of reiterated throughout the staff report. And the staff report, the reason for that language to be added to the staff report is that language has been tested in the courts. He went to a seminar basically to hear about different forms of ordinances, and this is what was provided at that seminar. So this presentation, we've tried to sort of break down what is in a sidewalk ordinance and what you might want to add at some point in 3 different parts. So ordinance details, that's sort of the standards and requirements for sidewalk repair, like noticing, sort of the more detailed timeframes for things. Repair policies is more like repair work standards or requirements that trigger sidewalk repair, like our current standard of $10,000 or more. And additional policies are policies that you might consider in the future to pair with the sidewalk ordinance, but aren't required to update the language for the sidewalk ordinance. So moving on, what we're trying to do here today, to reiterate, is to review the current and potential standards and the amendments that we could make to our ordinance, such as the cost of construction modifications that's currently set at $10,000, looking at examples of other ordinances where they've done something different, like raise the cost to $100,000. So reviewing those current code requirements, looking at state code requirements, how it can align with that, and also the City of San Jose example. And so any guidance that we have from that today, we'll try to come back again in the future with the full amendments to show you. So diving in, as far as ordinance details go, staff took a look at the San Jose language, and it's very clear on the timeframes for noticing. In San Jose language, it says time frame between receiving a notice to complete required sidewalk maintenance and the commencement of sidewalk repair should be 90 days. So that's something that staff looked at and thinks that would be reasonable for our ordinance. Staff recommends that the individual responsible for providing notices to property owners should be specified and designated as the city engineer. I think in other codes they call it the superintendent of streets. So something that way that would facilitate the city engineer being designated, so that they would be the ones designated for inspections, the ones designated for final determinations, and any other noticing and enforcement. And so past their basic noticing, it would also specify that how code enforcement gets involved if things go beyond just the regular noticing through the city engineer. Additional ordinance details, talking about, again, our code doesn't necessarily speak to who is the property owner is required to complete certain sidewalk repairs. And so trying to look closely at the liability section in the streets and highway codes that describes that the property owner is required to complete that. And also discussing later possibly how the city could look at future policies for cost sharing if property owners are the ones that are predominantly responsible for a lot of these repairs. So city street tree maintenance procedures are also going to impact a lot of sidewalk repairs, and we currently don't have a tree ordinance. We have the urban forest management plan that's been approved, but we don't have a tree ordinance that has a code that stipulates, I guess, how certain repairs are done when street trees impact, if there's heaving or lifting and things like that. So part of this is talking about having the city engineer, as part of the inspections, also being the one that can make that determination if a city street tree is a city street tree or if it's a private property owner tree. So currently, this diagram, I don't know how well we can all read it. It's very small, but that's the Urban Forest Management Plan table. And so it specifies that if a city tree is in a park, it's the city's responsibility to pay for damage to sidewalks or other things from that tree. And so currently, we do not have a definition for a city street tree, but it's anticipated in the future, if there was to be a tree ordinance created as well, a definition would be created. And so currently, it defines very clearly if it's in a median, if it's in a park, it is the city's responsibility. If it's on private property and it's impacting the sidewalk, it's the private property owner's responsibility. And part of the urban forest management plan is it talks about having a tree ordinance and having an arborist as part of that tree ordinance that would eventually come out and make those determinations about damage or what can be done to repair a tree if it's impacting a sidewalk, whereas an engineer is really looking at how to repair the sidewalk, not maintaining the tree as part of that. So in the future, we could look at, staff could look at, and the city could look at tree damage as an eligible expense if they're thinking about cost sharing options and ways to provide things for residents who would have to pay for things. But either way, staff recommends that a licensed contractor should be the one to complete the repairs to any sidewalks. And ideally, a contractor would submit a bid to the city engineer, have them review it, and would also need to get an encroachment permit. And so looking at a lot of different areas throughout the city where there's a lot of sidewalks that haven't necessarily been maintained for a while, or there might be missing sections of sidewalk. I think staff is also thinking that eventually if there's a way to have an annual sidewalk assessment where throughout the city we could start to evaluate and prioritize different areas that then could be either looked at for funding or how we want to anticipate cost sharing and things like that. So moving on with repair policies. Sorry, yeah, it's a lot. Go.
Just to clarify, right,
Yes.
that you said assessment, you meant evaluation rather than a tax kind of assessment.
Yeah, I don't mean a tax assessment. I'm sorry. I mean sort of like the company that was a contractor that was already hired to come out and evaluate. And I think some of those contractors will also do minor repairs, depending on what it is. They'll do an evaluation and mapping, and then they'll also do like minor street grinding and things like that. But I think Davey and some of the other staff might have more details on.
I just wanted to clarify
Like an
that.
audit.
Yeah, for an audit for the streets, yeah, totally. Thank you. Yeah. So part of the repair policy is triggering, or the standards triggering repair. In the California section, it basically states the physical condition of the sidewalk is the standard requiring sidewalk repair. So the condition, if it's unsafe, that basically is the reason that it should be fixed at that point. So the condition of the sidewalk would likely require the property owner to initiate the repair procedures by submitting contractor's estimate and scope of work to the city engineer. And looking at other options for, besides triggering repair through just a cost of renovation. For example, the city of Oakland has paired the cost of renovation $100,000 as the main cost, plus a point of sale. So if you are doing renovations over $100,000 or you're selling your property, it triggers an inspection of the sidewalk, and they come out and determine if repairs need to be made. So that has to be created as a separate ordinance. So it's not required as part of updating these sidewalk sections to talk about repair and timeframes. But if it's something that council wants to look at more, we wanted to provide examples just for research purposes to give an idea of the range of options. Any questions thus far? Okay.
Larry, go ahead.
I thought that during the history of Willits that we have made it clear to the people in the community that when you transfer your ownership from one person to another person and the sidewalk is in bad shape, that it needs to be taken and made better before it's passed on to the next person. Is that correct or not?
I don't believe that that's codified. I think that code section that I read to you earlier, the 10,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anything else?
I have some questions, but I'll wait to the end.
Okay, all right.
Well, I was just, is this, the slides, is that right in front of Rexall?
I believe so.
Yeah. And are those, for example, are those trees, do they belong to the city or do they belong to the property owner in that case?
So I believe that looks like it's on, oh, Davey answers this. You go away.
These exact sidewalks we discussed today.
Oh.
These are the property owner's trees.
They are, okay, because they definitely have damaged the sidewalk.
I did have one follow-up question. A slide back or two, you were talking about defining whether or not, this slide right here, whether or not the tree was in a park or whether the tree was on the person's property.
Yeah.
But how do you define a tree that is planted in the sidewalk area? What will be the criteria? Is there currently criteria that determines very clearly whether or not that's city or private? Or will that be part of the proposed clarification?
Well, I would say it's probably going to be more like something that would get clarified through a tree ordinance, but maybe Davey can expand on
Because there
that.
isn't currently a clarification, is that correct?
Correct. There's currently, we do not have a tree ordinance and we don't have any definition of them. Our hope is in the future when we expand on a tree ordinance that we use the sorry, I'm blanking on the company that did the work.
Precision concrete cutting.
Precision Concrete did that, but we also had a tree company come and audit and basically count all of our street trees. And so that would be a way to define what is the city's trees and what are, property owners' trees. There's always going to be ambiguity in our town because we have so many old trees that were planted before they've grown across property lines. We're always going to have that ambiguity, but it'd be nice to have something in the future to have language in our ordinance that would be able to help us define that. Just because the city didn't plant that tree, is it still ours because it's in our median? There's many instances of that where people have planted trees in our medians, but the city didn't plant them. Does that make it ours? Those are the kinds of things we'd need to clarify in a tree ordinance that would help define it. And also, there's certain trees we obviously do not like. The trees in that last slide, those trees have major root uplift. They're not the right tree to plant near sidewalks. Define those trees as well in that ordinance. So any tree that's planted is the appropriate type of tree. Does that clarify that answer? All right.
I think it's somewhat clarified. It's still true, though, that if a tree is in your sidewalk and you didn't plant it, and you believe that it's a city tree, at this time, there is no, until we pass a new ordinance, there is no, it's not clearly defined who's responsible at this time.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification on non-clarification.
Thank you. All right. So I think that kind of summarizes where I was on this slide as far as either point of sale ordinance or renovation costs or just the general condition of the sidewalk as a trigger for sidewalk repairs. Moving on, so additional policies. So I guess this is more of what we wouldn't necessarily have to have immediately just to update the basic sidewalk ordinance language, but could be considered alongside of it. So hardship programs, for example, the City of Oakland, the attachment G that's in the packet, is their application for their hardship program. So if it's low-income residents, they have a program for them to get sidewalk repair income. Also, the City of Redwood City, they split the costs even, 50-50 with property owners. They've set aside funds for that. And I think it also depends on the type and scale of repairs. The City of Sacramento, They will pay for repairs and damages by city street trees, but they don't pay for all city sidewalk repairs for residents, like the city of Davis, as an example, does. And so these are options that could be visited in the future, but just for updating the sidewalk ordinance at this point, it's not necessary, but it's part of the conversation. Establishing a point of sale ordinance, so we talked about that already. A sidewalk ordinance, a point of sale ordinance can be triggered by, or can have a sidewalk repair part of the triggering of the sale, or it can also be when you have a point of sale ordinance just for structures. And so I just bring it up just for reference because we said point of sale ordinance a lot of times when we started talking about different forms. So a sidewalk or point of sale ordinance is just for sidewalk inspection versus one that's for structures like the city of Davis, where they're actually inspecting structures as they're sold and looking at code enforcement. So that's a different version than what we're talking about right now. The city staff doesn't feel that they would have resources to do inspections on houses, but the idea that the city engineer might be able to come out and do sidewalk inspections does seem like an option to staff. And so also raising the dollar amount to $100,000 or more, something that's a higher fee for construction costs, would also make it more clear for staff and I think property owners when they're trying to navigate some of these policies. And so our last additional policy, just wanted to mention, is the idea of art in public right-of-ways. So something that's not addressed in these other sidewalk amendments but may come up again in the future. There's examples of sidewalk painting, crosswalk painting, and I think we've heard during the grant period, we had heard from a few community members the interest in having some sort of sidewalk painting or crosswalk painting in areas, but it wasn't feasible during that time. So just bringing that up as another future policy that may be visited. So that is what I have. Any more questions?
Since we're defaulting, I believe, to the public highways policy, is that correct? Is there anything currently in the public highways policy that references sidewalk art?
Not in the fifth.
Sidewalk art as it relates to the current highways? Does it address that at all in that policy?
No, the state highway code is.
So there's just no
literally like a
policy on that
paragraph,
matter?
and it
Okay.
just designates the owner's responsibility for sidewalks.
Okay.
Real quick, just to follow up on that, would the portion of an ordinance that dealt with art in the sidewalk mean only painted crosswalks, or would it also mean like a sculpture that was on a city street?
I think it could mean that as well if it's in the public right of way. Is that right, Davey?
Because I was just thinking of the city of Cloverdale. They have a lot of public art downtown. There's got to be something in their ordinance to talk about whose responsibility that is.
This was brought up as part of the sidewalk ordinance because we were talking about crosswalks and sidewalk art in particular. I do believe our public art policy would be more pertinent to the art and sculptures that you're talking about.
Okay.
I believe.
Okay. Jerry.
I guess I definitely would be in favor of codifying the point of sale one, just because it just makes it clear cut. I know around the corner from my house, I believe there was supposed to be a sidewalk in my neighbor. In fact, it's not even my current neighbor. It was 2 neighbors ago that was supposed to put a sidewalk in, but I guess what I've heard the history was, and it predates all the current staff, so it's not like I'm casing anybody, but apparently there was a requirement of a sidewalk, but it was pending, I guess, the city storm drain issue that never happened, and because of that, there's not been a sidewalk, and I think a point of sale would make it easy. You know, hey, we didn't catch it the first time, we didn't catch it the second time, but you know, when it sells the next time, they got to have a sidewalk. And I think it would clean it up and make it easier for staff. That's one thing. I guess the other thing is I would also, my 2 cents would be, given the age of some of our housing stock here, that means that a lot of folks out there are holding onto their property, and which means that there's probably a lot of folks even older than me out there, and there are a lot of them on fixed incomes, and so having some way to help bridge the costs, especially when you look at some of the sidewalks and they need repair, and in order to encourage that. And I know that it's been, depending on where it happened, I know my dad's now since passed away, but at one point the city had a program where I think they had a contractor come in, and it was a deal where they got I thought my dad felt they got a pretty good deal to put in the sidewalk, because I think they had curb and gutter at the time at his house, and they put the sidewalk in, and he had to pay. That's why he was a little ticked off when they did the improvements on, I think on Central Street, and those people didn't have to pay, and I think my dad said, hey, I had to pay. I said, yeah, but apparently they've got some grant, Dad, and that's why. But I think if it was clear, if we had something out there, then it would be real clear. I get it, if money comes, there's a gift in the form of a grant, then you may get a pass this time around, but if your property falls in disrepair, 20 years from now, and even if you got a free sidewalk in your whatever, you now are responsible to fix it, or whoever buys the property. I think putting that and codifying that, I would be in favor of.
Okay.
And then one last thing is the level of repair. I get it. I know in some places in town, there's been what I'll call it looks like it was a temporary sidewalk repair that's now kind of become, so you see asphalt instead of cement. And then as it starts to degrade, because its lifespan isn't as good as cement, then so a standard there would be important.
Mitch.
So a couple of comments. One of them is, I kind of agree that at point of sale is a good time to trigger a review to determine whether a repair of the sidewalk is needed. But I think if you're doing a remodel, 10,000 is pretty low bar. Like it doesn't take much to put $10,000 of repair, and that might be kind of hard on some of the. And we want people to repair things, right? But 100,000 is actually rather high. So maybe something in between. I'm not sure. So anyway, that's a thought. The other thing I was just wondering about, there are little areas of the city when you get up into the hills that don't have sidewalks, and that I think sidewalks would be maybe not necessary and would be very expensive to put in. Because they aren't there now, and if somebody sells their property and their neighbors don't have sidewalks, and is there a way we can distinguish where are we requiring sidewalks and where aren't we? Because I don't really want to see sidewalks up the little alleyways and up the hills. I like them the way they are, and I think the residents like them the way they are, and I would hate to impose a kind of strict thing. You're going to put a sidewalk whether any of your neighbors have them or not. Anyway, I think there needs to be some discretion there that we look at. So I think those are my comments currently.
In full disclosure, before I tell you what I think, I just want to make it known that I am in the process of a sidewalk repair. It's $35,000 for the bid. It's already been approved. I'm paying for it 100% out of my own money. The city's not contributing anything, and any opinion I have on this ordinance won't financially impact me. So I am continuing to participate in this process. So a couple of thoughts that I have is that as I was reading through this policy, one of the communities had talked about that threshold of whether it was 10,000 or 100,000 being even potentially a 5-year cumulative. And I just want to say that I wouldn't support that cumulative idea. And I think $10,000 is just kind of ludicrous, and doing repairs that it doesn't take much. I mean, you could replace some windows and spend $10,000. I do support the $100,000 marker, and even that, if you're doing a quality repair of any kind of significance, it doesn't take much these days with the cost of labor and materials to easily hit that marker. you had mentioned something about a bid to the city, and I was a little confused about that because you stated that if you were going to repair your sidewalk, you would have to give a bid to the city, and that language sounded a little vague, so I want to repair my sidewalk. Am I giving a bid to the city because the city is, in that situation, is going to pay a portion? And if so, how many bids do I have to provide? Does the city then choose which contractor is going to do the work based on some criteria? So that wording was a little concerning to me in terms of how that would play out. I would hope that, the homeowner, if we're paying even 50% of it, or the business owner, that we would have the final say on which contractor we choose to select. I would support language that if the city does want multiple bids on a project and there is a program that supports paying for half, and that the city would be able to then say, okay, we're going to pay half of the lowest bid. And if the property owner chooses to go with a different contractor, they just pay the proportionate, that works 50% plus whatever the difference is. And then the third item was that I'm not sure how I feel about the point of sale. To be honest, I'm not for it or against it. I can think of times when I've thought about purchasing a property and thinking about in terms of whether I would have purchased a property. I might have passed up a property, and we're talking about some buildings here in town that are vacant, and we want to encourage people to buy them, fix them up, and so, and housing is already really, really expensive, so adding another layer of government enforced expense, we have to think about that. I mean, as a city, do we like it when the state throws out another mandate, but yet there's no matching funds to meet the mandate? That's really, for me, that's what I feel like you're saying to the property owners. Here's another mandate. We're not going to give you any money, but we need you to do this. So just keep that in mind. And then I strongly would support an assistance program that is a matching type program of 50-50. And those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Can I have one more thing?
Yes.
I kind of interpreted the bid as kind of like, I'm going to get my sidewalk repaired, and maybe it's ABC contractor that does work for the city or does whatever, because I think that's when my dad had his sidewalk done. It was somebody was doing work in the city, and they kind of threw it out there. We're doing this, but I kind of interpreted it as you guys are going to review the bid to make sure, A, it's not Billy Bob, throws asphalt down and you've had complaints all over town that his job is shoddy versus it's a licensed contractor that's doing business. That's what I interpreted that.
Okay, that for me, just it's the language of the word bid then that maybe needs some clarification later.
Mr. Stransky has.
Have you been out around the city and looked at the curb and gutter and sidewalks and things around the city?
A few areas, yeah. There's a couple
I'm
spots,
talking
some of the
about
pictures.
you can't just separate, like I've been a few places. If you really have going to do this, you need to say, okay, I will have been almost down every street and seen everything. The city in my area built the curb out of asphalt and moved the land in so that it's away from the landowners. There's a trench down that runs down the street on the person that owns the property, because the city put in an asphalt curb about 5 foot from their property. And you can't do things like this as a city and then expect you or whoever from the city to come and say, you've got to fix that sidewalk because you haven't been consistent.
So what I guess my question is that sort of a support for having like an annual audit from a third party and having them try to go throughout the city to be more comprehensive regularly?
No, my thing is, if you're going to start some type of a thing to say, okay, every time you change ownership, then you're gonna have curb and gutter. Okay, and that has to be consistent. It can't be because Davey's gonna get a place and he doesn't have to do it because he's working for the city. I mean, there's things all over this city that are terrible. And when you come up with these things, you're gonna have to know what you're talking about, okay? That's all I'm saying.
I hear you, but I also want us to remember that we are the city and that we give direction. We give direction to staff. She doesn't make the rules. We give her, essentially, we're the ones that are ultimately responsible that are going to make these rules, right? And I hear what you're saying, that you want them dispersed fairly and you want to see curb and gutter and
No, the city.
or sidewalk.
What I'm saying is that the city has to be consistent. And they're not consistent.
And I would agree
So
with
for
you.
somebody to come and say that this is what we're gonna work for is not true.
Well, I don't think she's telling us this is what we're going to work for. Today, I thought the purpose was to present the where we're at, some of the problems, and how we can improve it, and then it's up to council, after listening to input, to decide what we want that to look like. What do you want to do? I think you told us what you want it to look like. And I agree with you on that. I want it to be an even policy. Unfortunately, I don't agree that it should be here or there based on the neighborhood you lived in. I do believe in uniformity so that we're giving clear direction to everybody who lives within the city limits.
That is correct.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
may I address the council? Let's be honest, our staff has undertaken the effort to update a 40-year-old ordinance that's outdated, incoherent on how we apply it. We just heard there's been inconsistencies in how it's been applied. We recognize it's a failure. It's not ideal. That's why we're bringing to you right now concepts and theories that we're asking for direction and guidance, and then we'll draft and compose into subsequent ordinances for your review. That's what we're looking to do. We recognize this ordinance. We hear you that it's outdated and probably wasn't applied fairly. We recognize that. That's what we're doing this effort for.
Thank you, Brian. I would like to make some comments. First of all, I support the $100,000 standard, much more reasonable than the $10,000 standard. I also support a point of sale trigger, and I especially like the carve-outs that were indicated for, let's see if I can find them. It said exceptions for, where did it go? Darn it, I had it right here. There were exceptions for instance, if someone inherits a home or if it transfers from one homeowner to a spouse, that would not trigger the point of sale ordinance. So I appreciate those carve-outs. And I also wanted to say, I understand, Sabrina, your comment that putting a point of sale requirement could be a hardship for someone who's looking to purchase a property, but it would actually become a potential for negotiation between the buyer and the seller. And so it wouldn't necessarily have to be borne by the seller. It could be shared between the two parties, or it would become the buyer has to lower their price knowing that the seller is going to have to.
I thought about that. I agree
Right,
too.
okay. I also wanted to say that while I understand that these other ordinances are not necessarily having to be done immediately, I very much support the sidewalk repair hardship program, the point of sale ordinance, and a tree ordinance. I think all of those things will help clarify for staff and the public whose responsibility is what. And so, yes, we don't have to do them right now, but the sooner we can do them, the more clear it is for everyone. It makes your jobs easier, and it makes our community more confident that the government is actually making clear ordinances that will be applied fairly to everyone. And I think that's what we're all looking for. So I'm really thankful for all of the work that has gone this far into proposing something for a sidewalk ordinance. It's long overdue. It's clear that you have all put a lot of time into this and done the research. I'm so grateful that this is happening. There's been so much confusion for years in the community. Well, who's going to fix the sidewalk? And a lot of people don't know that it's already on the books, that it's the property owner's responsibility. So really narrowing this down, ironing it out, and making it clear can only be a good thing for our community. There are so many holes in our municipal code, and I just am really glad that you're taking these steps to make it clear for all of us. So thank you. Yes, Davey.
My comment was answered by you guys. I was going to clarify.
Okay. Any other comments from council before I open it to the public? Okay. And just to remind everyone, this is discussion. It will come forward as an ordinance, and then we will also have opportunities to weigh in. But for now, this is just to give staff feedback so that they can make sure that they're moving forward in the direction that we're all expecting it to go. Anybody out there like to make a comment? Yes, Virginia, please come to the podium.
I just have a question, please. Just a curiosity. The picture that was presented by Davey, I believe that's the corner of Westminster.
Sure.
Okay. And what I wondered is, I don't want to charge this person who bought it recently, that he would have to go in and do all of this, because that sidewalk to me is dangerous. And I always, wondered whose responsibility. So would this person need a survey of that piece of property? Because it's been there for so long. I know those trees were planted before or about the time our daughter was born, and I went to her age. It was in 1967 when they were doing all of this, and Canopus owned that corner. And so anyway, I don't know how many times it's changed, ownership. The pharmacy was there, and then Safeway did something there. But anyway, this makes it a real hardship for someone who comes in, and as you mentioned, their businesses are really slow right now. Things are going. So is this going to be with the commercial also? And what would be the city's liability on that corner if I trip? And I'll try not to walk down that corner.
Thank you. Yes, the public does have liability, their own responsibility for walking on known dangerous sidewalks. That is an exception. Currently, the property owner bears most of the liability for sidewalk. If you trip and fall on the sidewalk, it's the property owner's liability. The city's liability increases as we know about problems and fail to force the property owner to fix them or fix them ourselves. That sidewalk is a known hazard. That one is going to be fixed when they pull a permit. That one has an active code enforcement on it for trip and fall. And that's it's a good example of how our code isn't very clear. And so on that, when that property originally, the last time it sold, it was going to be fixed. And then the city had a street plan, we're going to do a capital improvement on that street, so don't fix the sidewalk, hold off. And so, so that was originally a plan, and then it didn't happen because the city was going to do work. City failed to do work, dropped off the radar. Now 5 years later, where we're at with still a poor condition sidewalk. So the intent of this is really to clarify for staff so we can give clear direction to property owners, because they do come to us with all these questions, and they're never going to be, you're never going to have a code that's perfect. There's always going to be that tree that's halfway on a property line, and we're always going to have to make some decisions. But what we're looking for in this is clarity for the community and clarity for staff, and so we can have definitive answers, and we don't have to navigate that gray area as often and make those hard decisions where we don't want to pick Taylor has to do it and Ragda doesn't. We want it in the code to where it's clear that yes, this is applied evenly and consistently. So, but yeah, sidewalks, as a city, we have a lot of policies, safe routes to school, walk Willits, all these things, and I think we need to have a clear ordinance that helps us get those walkable sidewalks for our community members. Because it's not just the property owners that use them, it's all of us use them.
Yes.
So.
I realized I also have a comment about the idea of splitting the cost 50/50, city versus, or city with property owner. I'm on the fence about that one. I like the idea in concept because it would encourage property owners to make those repairs, which many people have put off for years because of the fear of the cost of it. However, I don't know that that's a good door to open for the city. We have enough financial worries of our own many times, and I'm not sure the idea of offering to pay for half the cost is a good policy to set up for the future. However, I'd want to hear more from the public what they thought. It's public money that would be helping improve a public facility, so it makes sense, but I kind of would want to have the public weigh in more before I committed one way or the other on that.
Just to clarify, I think a lot of those ordinances, and catch me if I'm wrong, are the 50/50 split if it's a street tree that does the damage. So the city plants a tree, it damages, so it's kind of a hard pill to swallow that you planted that tree, it wrecked the sidewalk, and you're going to make me pay for it. So I think that's where most of the 50/50 splits come in, is when the damage is done by city trees.
That makes sense, and if that's the case, then I would definitely support a 50/50 split. I think that would help ease that bill. Yes, Karen.
I live right down from the street we're talking about.
Can you pass the microphone down to her? Thank you.
So I live right down the street and have to walk into the street to avoid that particular area. And I agree that as a homeowner, there's to remove a tree of that size, $20,000, $30,000 plus, and then the cost of the sidewalk and all of that. Is there a way we could offer low-interest loans to homeowners and pay it back over time?
That's a nice idea. I like that. Madge, did you have a?
Is this on? I can't tell. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I was also thinking about up Wood Street, which has a very hazardous spot on that walkway, so-called walkway. You cannot walk on it. But there's a gorgeous, huge redwood tree, which is why the sidewalk is torn up. I would hate to sacrifice the redwood tree in order to put the sidewalk in, nor could that property owner possibly afford to do that. It's just a little single-family home there. I know that when we did West Commercial, the city with grant funding did a lot of improvements, and they went around some trees with the sidewalk to make that, to save the tree. So that's a case where I wouldn't know how to solve the problem, because I certainly don't want to sacrifice the tree, and it is definitely a hazardous spot. I don't think any ordinance can address every single situation like that, but I like the idea of the city being able to contribute in some way to the cost that this is going to impose on either a property owner making improvements or a prospective buyer of a property that requires, many thousands, tens of thousands of dollars worth of sidewalk improvements. And I like the idea of a loan, a low-interest loan that could spread that over time, and maybe, and also what was the low-income grants or something that would help offset those costs.
The hardship.
And I would love to have comment about how they're going to deal with that Wood Street property.
I just realized that I didn't really officially close the public portion. Is there any other comments from the public? We sort of brought it back up here without. Yes, please. Yes. Sorry.
Regarding the point of sale, it's going to be very hard on you to impose that, because if you impose it when you buy a property, you have to pull a prelim report. So any issues or natural hazard disclosures that tells the buyer specifically if there is any issue, what you need to do. So you need to talk to the real estate nationwide in Sacramento, where you need to add that into the disclosures So the seller, when they fill their disclosures, they need to put it in writing that there is a problem with the sidewalk, and it's a responsibility for somebody to fix it before we close it. Because no matter what you do, between any negotiation between the buyer and the seller per contract, we can close the sale. Unless it will show in the natural hazard disclosure or a prelim report. When I bought my property, I didn't know about a lot of things because they weren't recorded at the city hall because it's not updated. And I pulled the report. There's nothing there tells me there is a problem with it. So just want to let you know, a point of sale transaction is different than if you want to impose it. The seller have to disclose it. But
you.
they can close without it.
Thank you.
Because the contract has to do with the property and the land.
Davey, wouldn't that be handled similar to that of, for example, when you purchase a piece of property, I know that the utilities, for example, Scott will come out and make sure that you have a backflow valve. And if you don't, then that's something that has to be fixed before you can close escrow. Wouldn't this just fall into that same criteria?
It would be very similar to our sewer lateral inspection program. It would basically, at a point of sale, you would have a sidewalk inspection by our city engineer or his designee, and they would go out and do an inspection, and you'd get a sign off like, yep, your sidewalk's great, and you get that piece of paper, and that would be part of the disclosure on the property, and you'd have that document said, yep, your sidewalk's good, or yes, you need to fix 10 feet of sidewalk. So it would, I would envision it would be very similar to that program.
And then just one last question, because somebody brought this up, and I'd forgotten about it. Streets that recently received major renovations to the roadway, many of them also got sidewalk repair. And one example of that would be Main Street, for example. We got a new Main Street, everybody got new sidewalks. In this ordinance going forward, would there be an exception for certain streets? For example, right now, let's say that something happens with the sidewalk in front of any one of those homes or businesses on Main Street. Are the individuals with the ordinance the way it is, are they responsible? Or will the city continue to maintain certain main artery type streets throughout the community instead of the property owner? Something to consider.
So currently Main Street, we have fairly brand new sidewalks that, even though they're brand new, there's still the property owner's responsibility to repair and maintain. So regardless, I know the city does repair stuff, and a lot of things we'll go out and repair just for safety. We just take it on ourselves, like, hey, this is a tripping hazard and it's immediate threat, we'll go out and patch it. Just because time is of the essence. We had those 3 uplifts on Bechtel, I think were the most recent thing, where we had some seismic activity and we had some 1-foot spikes. The city wouldn't fix those, and we didn't force the property owner to fix those because they need to be fixed immediately. But currently, yeah, regardless of the newness or quality of the sidewalk, it's the property owner's responsibility. And the city, we're not taking on that. We do take on when we do new projects, typically we go edge to edge, end of back of walk to back of walk. And there's always going to be some winners and losers as based on our capital improvement project and the plans, that some streets are going to get fixed before others, and it's just the nature of improvement.
Mr. Stransky.
When we bought our place downtown, 75 South Main Street, and they poured the new concrete and put up the new tree and everything, then how come I had to get up to get my sewer fixed? I had to call Caltrans and get a permit that cost me $1,500 from the state to fix it, if it is my responsibility.
I understand that's a confusing thing.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just saying.
So when you
have to be consistent.
So in the city's defense on that, when you had to do that work you had to get the Caltrans permit, that was prior to the city, the Caltrans relinquishing Main Street to the city, so it was not the city's right-of-way. So now, in the property in front of 75 Main Street is the city's right-of-way, so you would get our sewer lateral permit. If that same thing happened south of Highway 20, you would still need to get a Caltrans encroachment permit to work in their right-of-way. So that same scenario could happen again to someone who is south of Highway 20, because it is not the city's right-of-way.
I hope I never have to replace a sidewalk in front of my home.
Yeah. I guess I am a little confused on that, the Main Street question, because my business is on Main Street and we had our sidewalk redone, but according to Caltrans, our responsibility only went halfway to the sidewalk because we have an 8-foot wide sidewalk instead of the required 4-foot wide or 3.5 feet wide. And so I guess my question is, the city put in all those bricks. If something happens to the bricks, am I responsible for those as the property owner, even though according to Caltrans, that wasn't my property?
Or if they
And I didn't get any kind of a stipend from them, although I did for the portion that they technically said was mine while they were doing all the construction. So it's confusing.
I agree with, and so Caltrans does have their maintenance crew locally. It's interesting because they actually will take care of the sidewalk south of Highway 20, even though it's actually in the state highway code that it's the property owners, which is it's odd.
Yeah.
So the state law says it is the property owner's responsibility, but if Caltrans is willing to take on that responsibility and fix it, we should let them. But yes, it is confusing, and that's where we need an ordinance to clarify all this stuff.
Well, yeah. Yes. Well, like I said earlier, I'm very grateful that this discussion is happening. I appreciate the work that's gone into this so far. I think we're going to come up with a good, workable ordinance that will help clarify things for the entire community. So I think we're off to a good start. And if council has no other comments, I think we can wrap this discussion up for tonight.
Thank you for the work.
Okay. All right, we will move on to the presentation and acceptance of audited financials for fiscal year 2021. Manny, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor Connie. Good evening, council. I have a resolution in front of you for the acceptance of audited financial statements for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. When we started this audit, I was thinking it was only going to take a couple months, and it ended up lasting a lot longer. Most of the reason why was because there was some issues behind the ADP module and how ADP interfaced with the actual general ledger in itself. There was a lot of items within the liability section of the general ledger associated with how payroll was being facilitated. And no fault to anybody here that was working on it or anything like that. It was just instructions that were given that technically were faulty, and it caused a big ball of twine that I had to untangle. So it took a lot of effort and energy from staff in order to be able to cover and fix a lot of the issues that were in the Fund 690 account. But it's finally done, and it's unraveled all the way through 21, 22, so I'm expecting the next two audits to run a lot more smoother than this one has. The interesting thing about this particular audit is that we ended fund balance by an increase of $349,000 in the general fund, and that is mostly due to our accrual standards. The modified accrual process is when we end the fiscal year, that not all of the revenue that was designed for the prior year has been entered in or has been received until August or September. And so that is accrued back to the prior fiscal year in order to be able to match when the revenues of that year with all the expenses of that year. That was approximately $390,000, which gave us a $349,000 surplus when you look at it from a modified accrual approach. Having said that, if you look at One of the other items of note would be looking at the government-wide section of the assets on page, I believe, is 17. You'll notice that there is a $3,369,000 negative balance within the unrestricted section, and that actually is part of the UAAL pension liability. So GASB 68 forces us in order to be able to show that as a part of our books and as a liability that's of future years. It's unrealized as of this moment, but we're currently working on trying to reduce that amount in future years. Other than that, I'm available for questions.
Anybody? Questions for Manny? Okay.
So on the unrestricted, that would be the PERS unrestricted?
PERS, yes.
Okay. Yeah, and again, I think I've mentioned it before that we do need to come up with a plan. I hadn't harped on you because we've been trying to play catch-up.
Yeah.
But we do need to figure out a way. I know a lot of municipalities and agencies have come up with a way. I mean, it's kind of like prepaying your interest on your loan, even if you have to do it $100 at a time kind of thing.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about the UAL is that it's in a constant assessment from the PERS Pension Liability Fund. So every year, the assessors, they look at how they did last year with their investments, and they have a certain expectation of approximately, I think that right now it is at 6.75%. They expect to be able to gain 6.75%, and this year they actually lost money in that. And so when they do a reassessment, suddenly our UAL increases. You know, and so it's through no fault of our own, suddenly we find ourselves another $500,000 in the deficit, you know, and this stuff happens all the time. There's an ebb and flow with how they do our assessment of our future obligation. But paying it down does help soften the blow when that occurs, and we have 2 of our plans paid down already, and the other 2 are our miscellaneous classic and our the safety PEPRA. So those 2, I believe, are the 2 that have balances still remaining, and if I remember correctly, they're somewhere short of 20,000 or 20 million.
I just know when that reassessment comes and then we get the hit budgetarily, then everybody cries foul, yet it was there going into it, and it's scary. I'll be honest with you, as a retiree, you look at it and go, I hope the city can pay its bills because I'm a retiree, and then for a lot of you guys, you'll be there one of these days too, and you know, it's a scary thing out there.
Yeah, and it's important for us to kind of try and draw it down as much as we possibly can.
And just to clarify, we did discuss that at the Finance Committee meeting, the last Finance Committee meeting, and agreed that getting through the next 2 audits is priority number 1, and then start working on a plan on how to address that PERS number.
Yeah.
So that's in the forefront of his thinking.
Additionally, we've also finished and this came in after the agenda was published, but we've also finished the single audit for this particular fiscal year, and we have now just started, as of today, the next year's audit. So we have the interim, what they call the PBC list, for us to be able to start drawing down and putting in our schedules for the next audit.
And I just want to thank you, Manny, for staying on top of these and getting us, I guess it's a little hard to move forward unless you know where you've been, and this is a big chunk of that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Madge?
I think these are fairly minor questions, but I wanted to ask you, on page 8, the graph that shows the government activities expenses, there's a slice that doesn't seem to have a key to it, between Parks and Recreation and then Community Development. And then the other minor question is, it seems as though our Community Development Department is mostly under planning, and I'm wondering, why is Community Development showing this small little amount that isn't even under the general fund in another spot? So those were just 2 random questions here.
I believe that that's a specified amount that's part of the small aspect, I think it's like 1010, that particular expense is citing. I can look it up further and get back to you on that.
Okay.
And Madge, I think that wedge that seems to be unlabeled actually is the community development 11,000 number. It's just that the line is on the very...
Well, 11,000 is a tiny sliver compared to these other slivers, or slices, I should say.
Is it? I think it's...
Yeah,
No, it should be a tiny sliver, which I think it is.
I think you're right. I think that the fact that it's in black and white is making it a little difficult to see.
Yeah, but so there's something after Parks and below Parks and Recreation that doesn't seem to be labeled. And then, can you answer about community development? Isn't our community development department, it's something else, because community development department is definitely cost more than $11,000.
Yes, it's a small slice of one of the departments, and I'd have to look it up, to
Okay.
see.
Thank you.
So,
Anybody else? Okay.
If you refer to page 58, when I first saw these financials, was a little shocked and frustrated, because at the time that we were in this fiscal year, we were also going out for Measure K funding, and I know that I was one voice on this council that showed concern that our financials may not be properly reflected at that time, and at that time we had a proposed budget that we were going to show a loss of $676,000, and now that the actuals are done, we're showing that we had a positive $635,000, which is a difference of $1.3 million. That's pretty significant in being off in our amount. And now we're in the position when we have our next Mary Kay meeting, having discussions, I think thoughtful, meaningful discussions about, what that means.
what page is that again?
58.
Looking at page 58, and I'm not seeing the numbers you're talking
If I recall, the budget deficit of over $600,000 was largely due to the fact that it was a fully loaded budget. So it included positions that we knew we were not going to fill. And I remember having discussions that I thought, well, why are we budgeting for these things if we're not actually going to spend the money on them? It just makes the budget look awful. And I kind of felt like we intentionally, that somebody made a decision to intentionally make the budget look bad so that we would feel the pressure of needing to go out for Measure K.
And at that time, I felt we had a different city manager, and I felt very much bullied and pressured to accept numbers that I didn't feel properly reflected where we were at that time, and I made it known many times, sitting in this seat right here, about how I felt about the matter. And so now to see that the financials have finally come in and have been audited, and to see that there was reason for the concerns that I had over getting good numbers for the budget were validated. So I know we can't go back in time, but it is good to finally get some resolution on that, and I think that as a result, we're going to have to answer some hard questions from the public, and rightfully so, about where we received our information and how we can do better going forward. For me, going forward, what gives me peace of mind is knowing that we have a good financial officer in place and he's doing the work. The audits are coming along, even if not as quick as we want. We have a good city manager in place now that keeps us more informed than I've ever been as a city council member. We have regular committee meetings, to discuss finance and other areas of the city. And I hope to never find myself in a situation again where I publicly and privately stated that I wasn't comfortable with the financial numbers that were given to me, and at times felt pressure from my fellow council members and my city manager to kind of not allow my voice to be heard when I had concerns. So I do feel different today, and I feel like we're on the right track, and that does give me some peace of mind going forward. But you do have to, I mean, it would be nice, I always say to the audience, I'm sorry, it would be nice if, probably for everyone, if we just accepted the audit and didn't really talk about, you know, what's sitting right before us. But the truth is, we were very much off on our projection of our numbers, and now we have the truth before us, and that is in fact what happened.
Jerry.
Manny, based on what you've seen here, and obviously you'll know more once we're done with the next audit, were we still kind of in a position of bleeding money at that point, or were we sitting fat?
Well, we did have a fund balance that was a little high. You know, it was about 2.8 million in the beginning of the year, increased to 3.1 in the general fund. There, I believe that they were looking at the burn rate and what was going on with the revenues and expense. It did cut close, but it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was in a danger zone that would cause us to be of major alarm. I mean, like, we would impact the fund balance, and that would definitely be something that we would want to course correct and work towards. But our ability to be able to function as a city was still, we were still capable at that point in time. And just looking at it as it stands right now, they may have looked at the burn rate and saw no way of actually, you know, because like you said, the budget was padded, or I wouldn't say padded, but the budget had,
Loaded.
yeah, had positions that were budgeted in there that they weren't filling, and maybe they looked at it from the perspective of, if we were functioning and we had those positions filled, we would be in worse shape. And so there was a lot of trimming that was going on at that point in time.
I know when I started with the city, I mean, honestly, as chief, I ended up, in the time I was chief, I was forced to cut positions over the years. And it continued all the way till I retired, that, you know, in retrospect, you know, now they're looking for bodies, but at a certain point, it seemed like every time we did a budget session, it was, can you do with one less position? Can you do with one less whatever? And we were, in that respect, it didn't feel like it was padded. It felt like it was constantly cutting. And that was, even preceding the last city manager, that was what we were getting at that point. Yeah. And going into what we saw, I mean, it's obvious, it's what's it, the benefit of being able to look back is great, but obviously that's why I'm kind of trying to figure out moving forward. We want to spend the Measure K money. We want to spend the city's money wisely, and want to make good decisions when it comes to staffing, so that when staff members come to us and ask us, hey, can we get this other individual? Can we buy this? We want to make the best decision we can with the information we have at the time. So.
Did you have something else?
I forgot.
Okay. I wanted to say that I share Sabrina's concerns, but I'm also heartened by the fact that we did end up in the black. I was recalling just this morning conversations that Jerry and I had. He was the mayor in 2020 during the shutdown. I'm sure we all can flash back to that time and remember how uncertain everything was, with so many people out of work. No one knew what was going to happen, and it was really a question of, is this going to be the next depression? I mean, is this really going to happen? And I think that it's a great credit to our city, to our current staff, as well as staff who were here at that time, that we held steady And it was rocky and it was hard, and we all remember the difficulties, but we're in a relatively good financial position, especially compared even to our immediate neighbors in the county. And I think we can be really proud of that. And I'm grateful that our city not only continued to offer services, but didn't go in the hole. We did not take our eye off the ball. And I think we can feel good about that. And I feel much better now with solid numbers. And I feel like we're going to continue to make good choices and even better choices, getting the solid numbers from you. So I'm grateful.
Thank you.
All right. I would like to open it up to the public to hear if anyone has any comments about this audit for the fiscal year 2021. It's an unqualified audit, meaning no significant issues were identified by the auditors.
I would say that on the more focused audit of the single audit, there were some things that were found. So, and we'll have that discussion in our finance committee.
Okay.
So.
Great, thank you. Anybody from the public, comments about this? All right, we'll bring it back up.
I'd like to move that we receive and accept the report.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Strong,
Yes?
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Strand,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mayor Connie.
Yes, thank you, Manny. All right, this brings us to 9D, to adopt a resolution to approve a revised personnel policies and procedures manual to establish guidelines for all City of Willits employees to follow as a condition of employment effective November 9th, 2023. We'll hear from our HR Director, Karen Stevenson.
Good evening, Mayor, Connie, and council members. Before I jump into this issue, I would like to thank Michelle for agreeing to back up the city clerk while she's not only got a full job, she's learning the new financial system at the same time and building her skills. But this allows Dolores the ability to take a well-deserved time off when needed and not be worried when she does. I am in front of you today to seek approval for the revised personnel policies and procedures manual. The manual has not been revised in its entirety since 2009, which is 14 years ago. On September 13th, you directed me to bring the PPP back after further discussion with the POA and IBEW and obtain a consensus on the final version. The author of this revised PPP is in front of you. Was drafted by Attorney Hadera Stanton, which is currently on our screen. She is the attorney with LCW, which is Liebert Cassidy Whitmore, and they are the attorneys that we contracted with to assist us with this endeavor. The revision was quite an undertaking, as there have been numerous changes to existing laws and new laws that were implemented in the past 14 years. And we just got some new ones today that are going to take place at the beginning of January. So there will be an amendment that will come back to you during that time frame. But we have with us tonight Attorney Stanton, who'd like to briefly explain the process of the revision and answer any additional questions that you may have.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes? Okay, great. So thank you for having me. As Karen mentioned, she and I worked together on this project. It was a massive undertaking. As Karen mentioned, the manual was initially adopted in 2009, so it required significant revisions. I thought it would be helpful to describe sort of three buckets of the work that was required in conducting this review and update. So first, consistent with our practices, we reviewed the manual to see what policies it contained that needed updating, what policies should be removed, and what policies that already existed needed to be edited. And we do this for cities and districts and organizations across the state. And this is consistent with best practices to tailor the manual to the specific needs of, in the case, your city. So since the manual was first created in 2009. So we added policies, for example, an equal employment opportunity, affirming commitment against all forms of illegal discrimination, for reasonable accommodations. We added policies against workplace bullying, and we also updated policies that were out of date to ensure they were compliant with current law. And as Karen mentioned, even in the process of undertaking this, some new laws that became effective January 1 of this year required us to continue to make further revisions, such as the sick leave policy, as we were conducting our review and edit. In addition, the city also had a number of policies that existed outside of the manual. So it's best practice to include everything in one place. So I reviewed those policies, updated them, and added them to the manual. That also contributed to the length of it, but now everything is in one place, so everyone should be able to find the relevant procedures and practices. We also reorganized it to make policies consistent and easy to find and locate. And then, in addition, as Karen mentioned, part of the project required reviewing the existing MOUs and making sure that the language in the manual was consistent with those MOUs. And also, Karen undertook significant efforts to meet and confer with IBEW and the POA as we went through this process. So the benefit to having undertaken such a massive update is it's now in good shape moving forward. It will require, as Karen mentioned, continuing to update to remain consistent with current laws as they continue to evolve. But sometimes clients wait a long time, and then the updates are then easier to process on an ongoing basis. So we wouldn't recommend waiting another 5 years to address this, but hopefully, having undertaken this massive project, the employees will have a good understanding of the expectations, and management will have a useful tool to guide the work of the employees. So I'm happy to take any questions. I do want to keep in mind this is open session, so I can't provide any legal advice or recommendations. But if you have any questions about the process or the manual, I'd be happy to answer them. So thank you.
Thank you. Do any council members have questions or comments about this? Okay.
You know, when you first look at this policy that came before us, it would have been easy enough for us to rubber stamp it, but the policies and procedures that are in the personnel policy really impact the day-to-day lives. They're the framework that helps decide, you know, the rules and how to move forward when there is a problem. And so it really behooved us to do our work. And I have to say I was really proud of us as a council that we all understood the depths of how important this was. And we all took the time to read this really, really long policy. And I know that it had to go back for some revisions. And I do apologize. I was not happy at all with the original version. It was really, really hard to read. But when I read it this last time after the revisions, it was so worth the time that it took to revise it because it was easy to understand. I had to ask myself, okay, I have this problem. How could I solve that? And then it was much easier to go to the proper section to identify the recourse or give me some guidance in where to go to. So the way it's written now is a significant improvement, and I thank you for your efforts and those that were involved as well, Karen.
A question for you, ma'am. In your review of this, you probably also reviewed or since you do a lot of these, you probably reviewed the Lexipol policies so that these don't conflict, or do they seem like they go from what I remember?
We make it consistent with the POA's manual. So to the extent they're in there, they're consistent with that.
Not just the MOU, but the Lexipol manual then, is that correct?
No, Jerry,
I didn't read it.
Okay.
Sorry, Karen?
yeah, we did not go to the Lexipol because they are specific to that department, only where
Okay.
this is general for the entire.
I know that Lexipol usually refers to when,
Yes.
some things are in conflict, they'll refer to the PPP. And so
Right.
I believe Lexipol will make reference to PPP. So I think it's one where legal things or things, I know that they have things like lactation policy and those sort of things in that, so.
I don't know, my understanding is Lexipol is reviewed outside. It's not our department that manages that, meaning the police department, but it is done with whoever manages Lexipol, and they make the updates. And the chief and I, once this is approved, will compare to make
Okay.
sure that we are,
Okay.
standing.
That was it.
Any other comments or questions from council members? Mr. Stransky.
I would like to thank you very much for making this even worth reading. I couldn't believe it the first time you gave it to us with all the strikeouts and reds, colors and all this kind of stuff. And it was so much easier this time, that even the third time through it that I did, that I want to congratulate all of you that did really a nice job in it, for me anyhow.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I did provide the unredacted or untracked, I should say, copy. I didn't make that decision, that it didn't come before you, but maybe it set us up for the anticipation.
Yes.
Actually, we were provided with that copy. I don't know if some people didn't read it, but we were given a clean copy.
It sort of got lost in the shuffle, and we saw the
I know.
lined out one in the packet, and I think we got
Yeah.
stuck on that, so, yeah.
I just want to make sure that, I know that Dolores sent it out, and so I wanted to make sure that.
And I
we
was lucky
noted.
to have some good partners with both the POA and IBEW to make sure that the intent was where it needed to be, and that the employees were thought of as well. It wasn't just what can we do as the city, but how it impacted the employees.
One last thing, Karen. I know that things change and sometimes legislation changes. If that happens, would Liebert Cassidy send us something saying, hey, this needs to be updated, and then we put an addendum in it or something? Or are we on some sort of subscription with that? Or will we get some sort of update? Because I know things are fluid when it comes to the law, and so what was current today could easily be behind the times just in a couple months.
Right, and thank you for asking that question. As a matter of fact, we just got LCW's legislative update today, and I shared it with Brian and the chief of police, because it's really the two areas that are impacted, and there are several that are going to need to be put into the policy or to the PPP, and it will come to you as an amendment. And we will work with LCW to make sure our language is accurate and continue to meet and confer with both unions.
Thank you.
I would just like to say thank you. I feel like we're doing a lot of house cleaning lately, and getting our T's crossed and our I's dotted, and it just feels good. It feels like it's going to make things easier for staff, and it's going to make things easier for our community to really see clearly what our local government is doing. So thank you.
Thank you. And our plan is to, once it is approved, we will hold meetings with all employees so that we go over it and we talk about the changes, and then they acknowledge their receipt. So it will be a large endeavor. Because again, lots of changes, but that will be, we want to be able to make sure that the employees understand what the differences are and how it's applicable to them.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. So at this point, we have a action to consider. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Public comment?
I asked for public comment, and didn't I on this one? I feel like I did. I will ask, is there any public comment on our PPP to adopt here this evening? Okay, hearing none, I'll bring it back up and ask for a motion.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve the revised personnel policies and procedures manuals that establishes guidelines for all City of Willits employees to follow as a condition of employment effective November 9th, 2023.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Strong,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes?
Stransky,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mayor Connie.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me be heard, and have a good night.
Thank you.
You too. Boy, it feels good to have that done. It seems like that's been on the agenda for months. Congratulations to everyone.
Karen can breathe now.
Yes. And poor you, it was the very last item on the action items tonight, so you had to wait through all of it.
I wonder why that always happens. I don't know.
Must make me stay.
Yes.
All right, we have no department monthly reports. Those are typically heard at the second meeting of the month because we won't have a second meeting in November due to Thanksgiving. We'll get that department monthly reports at the first meeting in December. That will be for October and November, and then we will hear December's in January, as is the usual custom at the end of the year. Takes us to item 11, City Council announcements, communications, and reports. Madge, we'll start with you.
All right. So tomorrow at 9 o'clock is the meeting of the Mendocino Solid Waste Management Authority. The main meeting will be in Ukiah, but I will be here if anyone wants to attend here. It's a public venue. My impression of the information being provided to that meeting is still not up to what I expect. I just do not understand why we can't get a report from the contractor on exactly what they're doing. We did have a hazardous waste event here last weekend, and that was good. But I expect to have a report on the budget, for example, and there is a budget report, but it is unintelligible. So anyway, I'm disappointed with the level of information about what's happening with the solid waste management. But the meeting is tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon at 2 is a meeting of the Economic Development and Financing Corporation, and that is pretty much pro forma stuff. The reports on all of the loans that are outstanding, things are going pretty well. So the other agency that I represent is Sonoma Clean Power, and I actually wrote up a little explanation about what happened at their meeting, which was a week ago. Yes, it was on November 2nd, a week ago tomorrow. And should I just read it? It's going to be less than 3 minutes, or should I just give everybody a copy?
Can you summarize it in less than 2 minutes?
Or give us a copy.
Yes, or you
I
can
can
give us
give
a
you all a
copy.
copy. They have generated a reserve, and they're going to devote, from now on, as they have that reserve already met, they're going to have 60% of the excess funds coming in to rate reductions in 24 and 25, 30% to local energy projects, and 10% to customer incentives targeting especially low-income customers. They're trying to reduce peak demand always, and peak demand is basically evening hours when everybody goes home and turns their air conditioner on, but not everybody here has air conditioners. But there's a lot of things that people can do to reduce that peak demand energy, which is the hardest to provide and the most expensive to provide. I would mention that I and Kate Kelly of Sonoma Clean Power staff were on Dan Jerdy's KZYX program explaining some of this stuff about what Sonoma Clean Power does, how it is not the same as PG&E. I'm willing to explain that to anybody who wants to know, because a lot of people don't really understand. They get one bill from PG&E, but a portion of that is the actual energy that Sonoma Clean Power provides. There was a bunch of stuff about state legislation and things that are going to be coming down the pike, including the fact that PG&E has very high rate increases coming to all of us for the grid. And they pointed out that TURN, which is a public advocacy group, has recommended, instead of trying to underground all of the the grid that is subject to fire hazard, that they could use a much less expensive and quicker solution, which is insulated, on the insulated, what do you call it? Conductors that are on the ground. So it can be done really quickly, and they're just as fire safe as undergrounding. So anyway, that was a really important item. And there are other new things coming down about solar, the tariff that solar customers get benefited by, and the NEM 2 that the city applied for. So we're under the wire for anything we improve right now to get the benefits of the tariff that it basically is very beneficial to people with solar. So when we put solar on our roof or on any of our other buildings, and the library is getting solar, those are eligible for a very favorable rate. But there is going to be a new tariff coming forward for people that didn't get in on that. They're trying to make it more equitable between people that can afford solar and people who haven't been able to afford solar. I think that's the summary version, and I'll have Dolores provide that to council members.
Thank you, Madge. Sabrina.
My boards and committees have just been talking mostly about planning and ongoing issues, so nothing of significance.
Is your mic on?
Oh.
It's going to take us a minute.
So, one of my boards and 2 committees have met, but it's all been about planning and ongoing issues and nothing of significance to report at this meeting.
Thank you. Yeah. Larry.
I went this Sunday to, I thought was very informative at the cemetery, and it was called Stone Stories. And there were things after living here for 50 or 60 years that I had no idea, and people that I'd never heard their name before. And it was just very enjoyable. I mean, it rained like mad a couple of times, and everybody got drenched, but it was worth it. It was really, really good. And I wonder if anybody, the 5 of us up here, can tell me where Up Creek is.
I don't know where Up Creek is.
No. Are you going to tell us?
Yeah, there was a person named Up, and he's got a huge tombstone out at the cemetery, and I had never heard of this man, and he was killed and whatever. But it comes out of Brook Trails on Padula's land and down to Out Creek.
Oh, yeah.
And been here, never heard of it. And I do have a map of it if somebody really wants to see it, because Tom Woodhouse knew it and he gave me a map of it. So, it's true. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jerry.
Well, glad you went out there, Larry. I was going to, but then when I saw the rain, I decided I was just going to stay home, and I actually started raking leaves and decided I was not even going to do that. So I did have LAFCO on Monday, and before I forget, they have an alternate public member position. Dickie Winkle is currently holding that now, and he's not going to apply for it again. So his term expires at the end of December. So the new public member term would begin in January of next year. And so I'm kind of throwing it out to the public. The applications are due November 17th if you'd like to be on LAFCO as a public member. And it's a public alternate member, because Jerry Ward is actually the public member currently. But they need an alternate in case, just like they have a city alternate, like on some of these boards that we're on, and county alternates. So
Jerry, I did get an email about that today, and I posted it on our website.
thank you. I just wanted to make sure I got that out, because they covered that at LAFCO the other day and wanted us to do the outreach, so that, because at the moment they do not have any applications, so.
The link is available on the city's website.
Thank you, Dolores. And then it was mostly an informational meeting on Monday. One of the things they gave us an update on was AB 399, which actually it was called the Water Ratepayers Provision Act of 2023, which was signed by the governor. And actually, it only really had to do with I think they basically said it was pretty narrowly focused on I want to say the San Diego Water District down there, which apparently it includes several smaller districts. I guess it'd be akin to like Sonoma County water agency up here. And basically, two of the members want to leave. And normally that would be done by LAFCO. They detach, and there'd be like an exit fee, kind of like if you wanted to exit PERS, you'd say, this is what it's going to cost you. This is what debt has been accrued as behalf of your agency, and they'd work out an exit strategy. Well, they basically worked this out, and they decided to go talk to a legislator, and they passed a bill. And now apparently before anybody can divorce from something like that, they have to, apparently all the ratepayers have to approve it. Well, you're never going to get that divorce, because it'd be like if Brook Trails wanted to leave our sewer area here hypothetically, and we all said, well, we don't want them to leave, and we had more voters than they did, they'd never be able to leave. And so that was kind of interesting. And then, let's see here, we had a couple other legal updates, and they gave us an informational presentation on behalf of the Ukiah Valley Groundwater Sustainability Agency, and that includes most of the water agencies down in Ukiah. And they're going to be going out for funding. They apparently have been getting their funding from several of the agencies in the Ukiah area, including the Sanitation District and some of the other ones. But in order for them long-term, they're going to have to go out and do some sort of either parcel tax or something. And so that's on the horizon down in the Ukiah Valley. So that's all I have.
Thank you. I attended the MCOG, Mendocino Council of Governments meeting this last Monday, or just a couple days ago. And there were only a few items that were mostly discussions. One I thought was particularly interesting regarding transportation improvement programming. The MCOG had just under $11.3 million to allocate towards transportation projects that had been proposed by various communities in the county. The requests totaled over almost $28 million. So the Technical Advisory Committee was tasked with determining which of those projects they wanted to recommend to the MCOG board. And they came back in support of almost all of them, which would have essentially been borrowing funds from the state years in advance. And I ended up being the only person who voted no on that, which was weird to me, but so...
How's that feel?
I thought Larry should be here. This is his role. Yeah, so in their wisdom, they decided to go forward with projects that will basically be borrowing RTIP funding for the next few years, which will limit any new projects that come forward in the county because that money will already be tapped. So I thought that was worth reporting. My other meeting on Monday was here at City Hall with Brian and Maricela de Santa Ana from MCRC.
Conservation District?
Yes, MCRCD. She is the one who led the recent birding tour out at our wastewater treatment plant, which was a huge success and has received a lot of positive feedback from the community. The discussion was to look at how to do more of those. It was a very positive discussion, and hopefully the community in the future will have more opportunities to see some of the incredible wildlife at our water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, and also to see the fantastic stewardship that our staff out there are doing, and feel proud of what we're doing here in Little Lake Valley.
Can I add one thing regarding that?
Yeah.
They do go out and do presentations at the schools. And so they've gone out, and the gentleman, or a couple of their employees go out, and I want to say they role play, and they'll have like some stuffed owls and some of the birds of prey or some other things, and they will say the whatever, or Mr. Beaver or Mr. whatever gets eaten by this, and they kind of cater it to the kids. So they will come out, they probably come out to your facility and do.
We've done them. They're wonderful.
Yeah.
We did
so
2 of them.
They're rather animated, so.
Another addendum to that is that they will be doing another on-site tour out at the mitigation lands on November 17th and on December 10th. And anyone who wants to go should contact Maricela at mcrcd.org.
Thank you. And then my final meeting was actually this morning. It was the Museum Advisory Board Committee. We did not have a quorum, so we were unable to complete our business. We did call for a special meeting, which will be held next Wednesday, because we do have important business to discuss, particularly in light of county finances and the precarious position that the museum now finds itself in. So I will report on that at the next meeting. And with that, I will move us to item 12, good and welfare. Has anybody got anything tonight? Yes.
I'll let you go first.
Oh, okay, thank you. Tomorrow, from 2:30 to 3:30, at Roots, they'll be doing kind of a presentation. The Roots restaurant has been approved as a Blue Zone approved restaurant. So
That's tomorrow.
tomorrow, yeah, from 2:30 to 3:30. I'm going to try and make it to speak there briefly, but that's all I have.
Anybody else, good and welfare?
I wanted to invite all. I get used to this. Okay, I wanted to invite you all to the ribbon cutting ceremony on November 25th, which also happens to be Shop Small Saturday for local businesses. That's that Thanksgiving weekend. And at 10 a.m. on that Saturday, we'll be having the ribbon cutting ceremony for the re-grand opening for the Toy Depot across the street. So I invite you all. I hope you'll make it. There'll be prizes and food and good fun.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I wanted to say that the Willits Economic Localization came out with their November-December newsletter. I have a few copies if anybody didn't get it and would like to. And that's where I noticed that there were the tours at the mitigation land. And we have stories about the farm to school program and about the hospital solar and the harvest dinner and about and anyway, if anyone else would like a copy, I got one more and I can get more.
Thank you. All right, we have no closed session
I
tonight.
have some good and welfare.
Oh, excellent.
On Friday, our Willits High School football team is playing in a championship game here in Willits, right? So I'll come.
All right. Go Wolverines.
Go Wolverines. Green and gold.
Larry's got the hat.
Barry and Christian?
Yes. Very good.
That was from 30 years ago.
Well, Larry brought the Fighting Wolverines hat up here. So.
There we go.
Once a Wolverine, always a Wolverine.
That's right.
All right, at 9:22 p.m., I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you all.